She took me in after my mom died and said I owed her my life. Then I found a folder in the attic with my name on the deed. "You were never supposed to see that," she whispered as I called my lawyer. My aunt told me I owed her my life. Then she kicked me out for asking where the mortgage money went. That was the last sentence she said to me before slamming the door in my face, barefoot, in the middle of a rainstorm, while the rest of the family stayed inside eating cake. My birthday cake. I'm Kellen. I'm 30 now, but this story starts when I was 14 and my mom died of ovarian cancer. We didn't have a lot. No savings, no backup plan. Just me and her, scraping by. When she passed, my dad didn't show up to the funeral. I later learned he had already started a new family in another state. So I ended up living with my mom's younger sister, my Aunt Carla. At first, I was grateful. I truly believed she saved my life. She made it very clear that she didn't have to take me in, and that a boy your age doesn't come cheap. But she had a guest room, and she let me stay, for a price. Not money, not at first, just obedience. Her rules were strict, no locked doors, no phone calls unless she listened in. I had to be home by 5 p.m. every day and report everything I did at school, including who I talked to and what they said. She told her neighbors she was raising a troubled teen to justify the way she talked to me in public, always loud, always condescending. But I didn't question it. I was scared. I had nowhere else to go. Carla had 2 kids of her own, but they weren't treated like I was. They had phones, pocket money, after-school sports. I had chores, guilt, and silence. She told me I should be thankful I even had a roof over my head. So I stayed quiet. I studied hard. I got into college on a full scholarship. And when I turned 18, Carla made me sign some documents she said were tax things related to my FAFSA. I didn't ask questions. I just wanted to do right by her. After college, I got a job in IT. My first paycheck felt unreal. I wanted to use it to buy myself a laptop or maybe even take a weekend trip. Instead, Carla called me crying that the water heater broke and she didn't have the money to fix it. I wired her $800 the next day. That became a pattern. "Your cousins are behind on school lunch again. $200. Your uncle's truck broke down. $500. We're being audited. $1,300. Every ask came wrapped in guilt. I gave up my life to raise you. You wouldn't even be alive if it weren't for me." And I believed her. I felt like I owed her. That debt followed me into adulthood like a chain. By the time I turned 26, I had sent over $40,000 to my aunt. I never complained, never asked for it back, never even mentioned it. Then something shifted. Carla asked if I could start covering the mortgage, just for a few months. She said she was behind and might lose the house, the only home I'd known. I said yes, of course I said yes. I even offered to automate the payments so she wouldn't have to worry about it. She cried and said, "That would mean the world." So I did it. I paid $1,950 a month every month for nearly a year. Until one day, I got a letter in the mail addressed to Kellen, my last name, from the county property office. The house was in my name. Not Carla's, not her husband's. Mine. I thought it was a mistake. I called the county clerk, and they walked me through the documentation. The house had been transferred to my name 5 years earlier. The day I signed those FAFSA papers, I sat there with the phone in my hand, completely numb. She used me. She used my name, my trust, and my ignorance, and she transferred ownership of her house to me, then made me pay for it, while she lived in it rent-free and still treated me like a charity case. I didn't know what to do. I didn't tell her I knew. I waited. I started watching more closely, asking subtle questions. Her answers never added up. She told me she was almost done paying off the house, even though I had made every payment. She said she needed a little extra this month for insurance, even though I saw the bills in my name and knew what was due. Then came my 30th birthday. Carla offered to throw a party for me. She said it would be a way to show she cared. I was suspicious, but I agreed. I hadn't seen most of the extended family in years, and I thought maybe she was trying to make amends. The party was in her backyard. Decorations, barbecue, cake with my name spelled wrong, but it was something. I tried to smile. I told myself maybe things could change. And then, right before we cut the cake, Carla clinked her wine glass and stood up. "I just want to say a few words," she said. Everyone got quiet. She looked at me, dead in the eyes, and said, "Raising you wasn't easy, and I did it out of love. But love isn't endless. At some point, people need to give back." I froze. Then she turned to the crowd and said, "We all agree, Kellen's forgotten where he came from. He's turned his back on the family, and we're tired of pretending he still belongs." People clapped. Clapped. My cousins, her husband, her friends, even my godmother who used to babysit me. One of them shouted, "You've been riding this family like a gravy train. It's time you pull your weight." And in that moment, everything went silent in my head. Because they didn't know. They didn't know the house was mine. They didn't know I'd paid for every bill, every broken pipe, every overdue balance. I looked at Carla, who was smiling, like she'd finally won something. So I did the only thing I could. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out an envelope, and calmly placed it on the picnic table. She frowned. "What's that?" I said. "Open it. You'll find out." She grabbed the envelope, opened it, and stopped breathing. Inside were copies of the deed, the bank transfers, the mortgage payments, everything. Her hands started shaking. I looked around at the others, still frozen, mid-clap. And then Carla whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "You wouldn't dare." I smiled. "You should have read the fine print." Carla didn't say a word. She just stood there, holding the papers like they were on fire. Her face turned the kind of red that comes from panic, not anger. Around us, the party had gone completely silent. The barbecue still smoked behind us, the cake was half melted in the sun, and my name was still spelled wrong in blue frosting. "Is this a joke?" her husband muttered, leaning over her shoulder to look at the documents. His eyes widened. "Wait, Kellen, this says the house is legally mine," I finished for him, calm and clear. "And has been since I was 18. She had me sign the deed over without telling me. I've been paying the mortgage for almost a year." There were a few gasps, a few exchanged glances. No one said anything, though. No one asked if I was okay. They were too busy watching her unravel. Carla clutched the envelope to her chest like it could protect her from the truth. "You're doing this to humiliate me," she hissed, voice low and bitter. I shook my head. "I'm doing this to stop lying to myself." She blinked, confused. "You convinced me for years that I owed you everything," I said. "You made me believe that your love was conditional, that it had an expiration date, that every act of kindness came with a bill. And I paid it, Carla. I paid it over and over again." Her lips tightened. "I raised you." "You raised a wallet," I said, "and now you're mad the wallet can talk." Someone in the back coughed awkwardly. My cousin took a step back, suddenly fascinated with her shoes. Carla's husband finally spoke. "Is this why we haven't gotten the last 2 payments?" "I canceled the auto transfer," I said simply. "Why would I keep paying for a house that no one wants me in?" She lunged forward then, grabbing my arm, her voice shrill. "Don't do this. Don't throw away family over some technicality." I pulled my arm back. "This isn't a technicality. This is my life. You kicked me out of your heart a long time ago. Today was just the official announcement." Carla opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I turned to leave. I didn't want to stay for the fireworks, but just as I stepped off the patio, she screamed after me. "Fine, take the house. Be the villain. But don't think you'll come crawling back when you realize you've got nothing else." I kept walking. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what came next. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to keep living under someone else's debt. That night, I slept at a cheap motel. No calls, no texts, no apologies. The next morning, I checked my email. 7 missed calls. 4 voicemails. All from Carla. The subject lines in her messages ranged from, "We need to talk," to, "You're making a huge mistake." One of them just said, "You ungrateful little bastard." So much for family. But what hurt wasn't her anger. It was how quickly the people I thought were my extended family fell in line behind her. Not one person from that party reached out. Not one cousin. Not one godmother. Nothing. I was invisible. It felt like being orphaned all over again, only this time, I was old enough to feel every cut. A few days passed. Then I got a text from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Derek, Carla's oldest son, my cousin. He'd moved out at 17, joined the army, and barely came home. His message was short. "I saw what happened. I'm sorry, I always knew something was wrong. You didn't deserve any of it." I stared at that text for a long time. Then I replied, "Why didn't you ever say anything?" He answered 5 minutes later, "Because I thought she'd change." But she never did. She just learned to hide it better. Something broke in me reading that. All these years I thought I was alone. Turns out, I wasn't the first. Just the one who finally said enough. I moved into a short-term apartment while I figured things out. I started therapy. For the first time, I wasn't ashamed to ask for help. It wasn't easy. I'd wake up with guilt pressing on my chest like a hand. I'd walk past mirrors and hear Carla's voice in my head. "You're lucky I saved you." Some nights, I'd wonder if maybe she was right. Maybe I had gone too far. Maybe family was supposed to be messy and I was just broken. But then, something happened that snapped me out of it. A letter arrived. Not an email. Not a text. A physical letter in a soft blue envelope, my name written in neat cursive. It was from Carla's youngest daughter, Ellie. She's only 16. The letter was 3 pages long. The first page thanked me for always helping with her school supplies, for showing up to her piano recital when her mom forgot, for listening when she talked about college. The second page said, I know what she did to you. I see it now. I see how she talks about you, how she changes the story. I used to believe her, but now I'm not sure what's true anymore. The third page. That one I still have memorized. I found something. In her drawer. It's a document with your name on it. I think you should see it. I nearly dropped the letter. What was it? Another deed? A forged signature? Something worse? I didn't know. I called Ellie right away. She sounded nervous, whispered the entire time like she was hiding in a closet. She doesn't know I took it, she said. But I think you should have it. I'll mail it if I have to. What is it? I asked. She hesitated. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. It's about your mom. I couldn't breathe. What about her? I asked. Ellie whispered, I think Aunt Carla lied to you about why you ended up here. Ellie's voice still echoes in my head. It's about your mom. 16 years of silence, of half-truths, and quiet manipulation. And now this. A whisper from a teenager hiding in a closet, telling me the one thing I thought I could never hear again. That my Aunt Carla, who raised me, guilted me, controlled me, might have lied about the only person I ever truly loved. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying every memory, every moment, every word Carla ever said after Mom died. She always told me it was sudden, that my mom collapsed at work and the doctors couldn't do anything, that she handled everything because I was too young to understand. But what if none of that was true? What if I'd built my life, my grief, and all my loyalty on a lie? The next day, Ellie sent me a scan of the document she'd found. It was an old file, tucked inside a folder labeled 1994, Guardianship. There was a signature at the bottom, my mom's signature, but it wasn't on a medical form or a will. It was on a letter addressed to my grandparents, her own parents, begging them not to let Carla take custody of me. My hands shook. She wrote that Carla was unfit, that she'd always envied our bond, and that if anything happened to her, she wanted my grandparents to raise me, not her sister. I felt like the ground disappeared under me. Carla knew. Carla knew exactly what my mom wanted. And she did the opposite. She swooped in the day after the funeral, took me in, and never said a word. I called the county clerk's office that afternoon and requested access to the full guardianship file. It took 3 days for them to locate it. When they called me back, the woman on the line paused and said, There's something strange. The file shows your grandparents initially petitioned for custody, but withdrew it 3 weeks later. That didn't make sense. Why would they withdraw? I asked if she could send me everything they had. When the package arrived, I opened it at my kitchen table. I flipped through pages of court paperwork until I found the one that made me freeze. A notarized letter, signed by my grandparents, dated 3 weeks after the funeral. It read, After further discussion with Carla, we believe it is in Kellen's best interest to stay with his aunt. Carla has promised full transparency and continued connection with us as his extended family. Except, they never contacted me again. Not for birthdays, not for graduations, not once. So I hired someone. A legal assistant I knew from work helped me track down their last known address. They lived 40 minutes away. All this time. They weren't dead. They weren't overseas. They were just gone from my life. Because Carla made sure of it. I drove there the next morning. The house was small. Yellow paint chipped off the porch railing. Wind chimes by the door. I stood there for a full minute before I knocked. An elderly woman opened it. Her eyes narrowed for a second, then widened. Kellen? Her voice cracked like old floorboards. It was my grandmother. She started to cry the second she saw me. Her hands covered her mouth. She called out, and an older man appeared. My grandfather. He looked stunned, then ashamed. We thought you hated us, he whispered. What? I blinked. Carla said you wanted nothing to do with us, that we'd made your life hard, that we weren't welcome anymore. I stood there, trying to breathe. They'd written me letters, birthdays, holidays, even just random Tuesdays. But Carla had intercepted them all. She kept me from my own family. The twist wasn't just that she'd taken me in when she wasn't supposed to. It was that she made sure I'd never know I had other people who loved me. She cut me off from everyone, then made herself my only option. That night, I sat in my car for an hour, trying to process it all. The woman I thought had saved me hadn't rescued me. She isolated me. She built a world where I was always the one in debt, always the one who had to give more. And when I started to pull away, she used the only weapon she had left, my mother's memory. I can't even begin to describe what that does to a person. I keep thinking about the people reading this, wondering if it sounds too dramatic, too dark, too much. But if you've ever had someone warp your entire reality, make you question what's true, who's good, and whether your love is really love or just leverage, you'll understand. You'll understand what it feels like to sit in silence after a truth like that and feel your own body betray you with the shakes. You'll understand why I'm writing this now. Because maybe someone out there has lived something similar. Maybe you were told your memories were wrong, or that someone was doing their best while quietly breaking you down. And maybe you're still carrying that weight, wondering if you're allowed to let go. You are. I'm still figuring out what healing looks like. Some days I feel strong. Some days I stare at my phone and wonder if Carla will call, just to lie one more time. But the difference now is that I finally know the truth, and no one can take that from me again. I think people assume revenge has to be loud, some fiery, dramatic act that leaves the world burning behind you. But sometimes, revenge is paperwork. Quiet, clean, and terrifyingly final. After I found out Carla had erased my connection to my grandparents and rewritten my entire childhood, something snapped in me. Not in an unhinged way. I didn't scream or cry or break anything. I just stopped pretending. I stopped pretending she was misunderstood. Stopped pretending I was lucky. Stopped pretending she hadn't broken something in me when she turned my grief into her leverage. I wasn't going to waste another second trying to fix what she had shattered. This time, I was going to fix what she thought she'd hidden. The first thing I did was go through every document she ever had me sign. I kept a binder with scanned copies, old habits from my IT job, and buried in that folder was a power of attorney form, dated when I was 19. Carla had tricked me into giving her legal authority over my financial decisions under the guise of helping with taxes. She had used my name and credit to open 2 lines of credit I'd never seen, both maxed out, both unpaid. My credit score was tanked, and I hadn't even known why. I filed a fraud report, filed a police report, filed to revoke every legal tie she had to my life. It wasn't just to hurt her, it was to reclaim myself. Then I called a lawyer. I told him everything, quietly, calmly, like I was listing off ingredients. He said something I didn't expect. You know she's still living in a house that legally belongs to you, right? I nodded. She has no idea. He leaned back. Would you like to tell her, or should I? I didn't answer right away. Because honestly, part of me wanted her to sweat. Not because I'm cruel, but because she's never been held accountable, not once. I remembered all the times she made me feel crazy for asking questions. All the times she weaponized family to silence me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reality, about making sure she couldn't rewrite mine again. We served her the papers 2 weeks later. Eviction notice, certified mail, legal and binding. She called me the moment she got it. Her voice, not angry, not panicked, just cold. You're really going through with this? Yes, I said. I am. There was a pause. Then she spat. You think this makes you powerful? This makes you disgusting. I didn't flinch. Power isn't about control. It's about truth, and I'm finally living in it. Then I hung up. The next day, I got a call from her husband. He begged me to reconsider, said the kids would be devastated, that Carla was going through a lot. I didn't remind him that I was one of those kids once, that Carla never thought twice about devastating me. Instead, I said, you have 45 days. After that, I pressed charges, and for the first time ever, they had to listen. But that wasn't the twist. That wasn't even the peak. That came 3 weeks later when I got a call from Ellie. She sounded breathless. Something weird's going on, she said. Mom and Dad are moving boxes at night, like sneaky, like they're hiding something. From who? I asked. She hesitated. You? That's when I knew. They weren't just preparing to leave. They were trying to steal something. I drove down that night, parked 2 blocks away, walked through the side yard, stayed in the shadows, and from behind the fence, I watched Carla and her husband load something heavy into the back of his truck, wrapped in a tarp. I waited. They left the tailgate half open, careless. So when they went inside, I crept forward and peeled back the edge of the tarp. What I saw made my stomach twist. It was my mother's boxes. Her things, her journals, her photographs. Even the necklace she wore every day, the one Carla said was lost in the hospital. I backed away slowly, breath caught in my throat. She hadn't just stolen my trust, or my name, or my finances. She had stolen pieces of my mother and buried them in her house, like trophies. And now that I was waking up, now that she was being forced out, she was trying to take them with her. Like she still owned that part of me. I took a photo of the box. Then I left. Calm, focused. The next morning, my lawyer filed a restraining order and a motion to reclaim personal property. When the court date came, Carla didn't even show. Her husband did. Alone, empty-eyed. He handed over a key and a statement saying they'd vacated peacefully. Inside the house, it was mostly empty. But in the back room, the one I had lived in for years, the one with the broken closet door she never let me fix, I found a trunk. Locked, rusted shut. I pried it open with a crowbar. Inside were things I didn't even know had survived. A drawing I made in first grade. My mom's final letter, never delivered. A copy of her will, unsigned, with scribbled notes in her handwriting. I want him to be free. I don't want Carla's poison near him. I sat on the floor of that cold, hollow room and cried like I hadn't cried in years. Not because I was broken, because I was whole again. Because I had proof, not just for court but for myself, that I wasn't crazy. That the ache I carried all these years wasn't weakness. It was memory. And memory, when protected, is power. I know this story might sound unbelievable to some people, but to anyone who's ever been gaslit by someone they were told to trust, I see you. I know what it's like to doubt your own story, your own heart. You're not alone, you're not the problem, and no one, not even family, has the right to rewrite who you are. The day Carla was due in court, she didn't show. She sent her husband instead, tired, stiff, and clearly just there for damage control. He slid over a plain manila envelope. Inside was a signed statement. They had vacated the house, surrendered all rights, and agreed to turn over the personal property I'd listed in my motion. No apology, no explanation. But for me, that wasn't the real closure. The real closure came when I walked back into that house. My house. The house she used as a prison and called a favor. I walked through each room like a detective at a crime scene. The living room was stripped bare. The smell of her cheap candles still lingered in the corners, like a memory that refused to leave. I ran my fingers across the empty shelf where she used to keep my childhood photos, cropped to exclude my mother. I took a deep breath, and then I walked into the room she never let me touch growing up. The attic, a space she always said was off limits for safety. I always assumed it was full of old furniture or broken appliances. Instead, it was full of boxes, dozens of them, labeled in her handwriting, not with dates or items, but with names. Mine, my mom's, my grandparents', even Derek's. She'd kept everything. Birthday cards, legal notices, letters never sent. One envelope was addressed to me, postmarked from my grandparents when I turned 18. It had never been opened. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a note. We wanted you to have something to start your life. We hope you're safe. We miss you every day. Carla had hidden it all. Not just the money, but the truth. The love I was supposed to feel. The support I was meant to have. She locked it all away like it was dangerous. I stood in that attic and felt every version of myself collapse into one. The boy who thought he was alone. The teenager who believed pain was love. The adult who learned too late that silence was a choice Carla made for me. But not anymore. I donated most of the furniture, sold the rest. I kept only what was mine, what should have been mine all along. And then I sold the house. Not out of spite, but because that place was never a home. It was a vault of someone else's control. I wanted no part of it anymore. With the money, I moved across the country. Found a quiet neighborhood, near a lake like the one Mom used to take me to when I was little. I adopted a rescue dog. I built shelves for her pictures. And I started over. Carla never contacted me again. But I saw her name pop up one day, buried in a local newsletter from back home. Her husband had filed for divorce. Financial misconduct was listed as one of the reasons. Apparently, he found out she'd been siphoning funds from his accounts too. Poetic? Even more poetic? She had filed for bankruptcy, but forgot to remove my name from one of the fraudulent credit lines she opened years ago. So I countersued. And I won. She'll never pay it back. She has nothing left. No house, no marriage, no reputation. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the record. About knowing that somewhere, in a courthouse file cabinet, there's finally a folder with her name on it. And this time, I'm the one who wrote it. A few months ago, I visited my grandparents again. I brought Ellie with me. She'd turned 18 and moved out the moment she legally could. She's planning to study psychology. She says she wants to understand why people hurt the ones they claim to love. I think I get it now. Control isn't love. Silence isn't peace. And family doesn't mean loyalty without accountability. Carla used to say I owed her my life, but I've built a life now that owes her nothing. And when I look at where I am, when I sit in my own home with no debt, no lies, no weight on my chest, I don't feel bitter. I feel free. Sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't leaving the people who hurt you. It's accepting that they never cared in the first place and choosing to live anyway. If any part of this story feels like your own, I truly hope you'll share it in the comments. You're not alone. And if you've ever had to walk away from the people who were supposed to love you, know this. There's nothing shameful about surviving. If this reached you in some way, you're welcome to stay for more stories like this. We're listening.